Yo, what's going on guys, it's Cynical and welcome back to another video. Today for you guys, I wanted to sit down and talk about the current launch lineup for the PlayStation 5 and actually compare it to previous generations of PlayStation. Now, leading up to the whole release of which for PS5, I've been a tiny bit concerned with the entire launch lineup, mainly because for just the longest time, we haven't really had a clear idea as to exactly what we will be receiving day one and what will and won't be a true display of a next generation experience. Now, jumping in from, of course, the PlayStation 4 generation into that of the PS5, it's not going to be a drastic difference straight away, considering the amount of just insanely impressive games that have released over the past couple of years, especially this year, when technically looking at both Last of Us Part 2 as well as Ghost of Tsushima. Those games are almost close to that of next generation experiences when we do look at the technical side of them. Now, since the PlayStation 5 showcase, we have a clear idea as to exactly what we will be in fact expecting to play day one on November 12th. The showcase was a little bit strange because it didn't really give us a clear idea as to what will and won't be a launch day title. We actually have to wait after the showcase to get further confirmation, which I just think is a little bit strange. I know they didn't want to reveal November 12th on a certain game throughout the showcase because they're waiting until the end to reveal the release date for the system, but they could have at least just put the tag launch day title. So interesting. Anyway, we now have a clear idea, so let's talk about the PS5 launch lineup and compare it. So the PlayStation 5 launch lineup is actually looking fantastic. I gotta say, I'm feeling a lot better about it now. We've got a decent amount of content that we will in fact be able to deeply dive into, and comparing it to that of previous other generations of PlayStation, this has got to be one of the better, I will not say the best, but probably one of the better launch lineups out of the bunch. So let's look at this. We've got Demon's Souls, which really looking forward to. I think this is going to be the true next generation experience for PlayStation 5 come day one. This is obviously a PS5 exclusive, and looking at the work that Bluepoint Games did on the Shadow of the Colossus remake remaster thingamabob, and seeing all of the recent Demon's Souls footage, this is looking like an absolute snack, giving us a really good example of what to expect come this next generation. Spider-Man Miles Morales. Now, this is interesting because we didn't actually know that this was going to be both PS5 and PS4, but it was confirmed on the PlayStation 5 showcase day that this game is in fact also going to be playable on PS4. Now, I know that this twisted a lot of people because everyone was like, alright, you're holding back my Spider-Man game on next generation! However, there will be a difference when playing Spider-Man Miles Morales on PS5, as of course it will include ray tracing, something that this current generation is not able to, of course, utilize. So you will sort of be tapping into those next generation feely good feels, especially with the SSD, the improved load times. Both Demon's Souls as well as Spider-Man Miles Morales are the two heavy hitters for the PS5 launch lineup, and two titles that I definitely do believe are going to be the enticement factor towards people making that PlayStation 5 purchase. We have Godfall. So it was confirmed about a day or two after that Godfall is in fact going to be a launch title for PS5 as well. I'm interested in this game. I think for me personally, I'm going to wait, but it's cool to see that we've got yet another semi-what heavy hitter exclusive. I don't want to quite put it up there with both Demon's Souls and Spider-Man Miles Morales, but this is looking like a fun time. It's a hack and slash looter, so it's going to be interesting to see what the reception towards this is. We've actually seen a fair amount of content towards Godfall. It seems to be that Gearbox are really trying to sell this thing, but for me personally, I'm going to have to wait and see exactly what the reception is towards it. We've then got Sackboy: A Big Adventure. Really excited for this actually, to see more Little Big Planet, although it's not going to be in the traditional format of Little Big Planet. This is more so putting Sackboy, the main character or protagonist from LBP, into that of an actual story-based platforming game. Just like the PS4 have a knack, yes, we are also getting a platformer game for that of the PlayStation 5 come day one. Where's my knack 3? You're giving me a Sackboy: A Big Adventure. I'm not complaining. But no, really excited to see this man is back Absolutely cannot wait for this. I think that's a nice little sort of cherry on top in regards to the launch lineup. Destruction All-Stars, a Destruction Derby-esque game. I know for the people that have been following this, they are pretty excited for it, but I do also feel as if Sony and the devs could have done a little bit more to further promote it, because I just feel like not enough people know about this, including myself. It wasn't actually until I went into the full launch lineup list for PS5 that I came across this, sat down and watched a few minutes of footage, and I'm like, okay, this looks interesting, but why have I not seen more of this? Not a bad little side title though for the people that are into that type of thing. Astro's Playroom will come with every PlayStation 5 system. It is similar to that of the Playroom little app thing that also came with PlayStation 4, but it's heavily more expanded upon and will also focus on the new features that the PlayStation 5 incorporates, mainly to do with the controller in the sense of haptic feedback. There's going to be a lot of cool little platforming-esque mini-games and stuff. It is a platformer thrown through, so more platforming goodness, but also throwing in gimmicks to do with the haptic feedback side of things. Everyone will be able to play this, so very cool for when you get bored of Demon's Souls and Miles Morales, Godfall, or whatever. You can dippity dive into this for like half an hour and have a good time. And then in the sense of multiplat, there's overly not too much, but we do have both Assassin's Creed Valhalla as well as Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition. I'm excited for Assassin's Creed, but I don't think I'll get around to playing that for quite some time, as November is just chock full of content. DMC5 though, on the other hand, it will be including ray tracing, super cool improved load times, and also on top of that, additional content. Nothing to be overly too excited about though, in the sense of both of these, mainly because they are multi-plat, so they don't mean overly too much. They will also be on the current generation of systems. Also looking at Devil May Cry 5, although yes, it includes Legendary Dark Knight mode as well as the virtual mode, there's not a lot of new content being thrown into the mix. But that right there is the PlayStation 5 launch lineup. Pretty damn good if you ask me. There's, I think, enough in here to appease to pretty much all types of gamers here. So let's compare this to other generations, starting off with the PlayStation 4. Man, the PlayStation 4 launch lineup had me mad depressed. Yeah, this has got to be, I would say, in my opinion, probably Sony's worst launch lineup, and yes, I'm putting this above PS3. This would probably have to be, for me anyway, the worst launch lineup that Sony have ever put out. The two exclusives here, two exclusives here were Killzone Shadowfall and Knack, baby. So Killzone Shadowfall was without a doubt a fantastic display and demonstration of exactly what the next generation of system could do. This is a mighty gorgeous looking day one title for that of the PlayStation 4. However, I didn't totally get overly too much enjoyment from it. While I am a pretty big first-person shooter fan, there was something about this game that just didn't really click with me, and also I never really followed the Killzone series as well, so that probably had a part to play towards that too. Then we had Knack. Knack. To be fair, I actually liked Knack, having that sort of platformer then beat 'em up-esque thing sort of mixing together, and also seeing that Sony were putting more faith into that of a platformer, considering that for a little while now platformers had been dead, specifically looking on the Sony side of things. It was refreshing, it really was, but honestly speaking, it was by no means a system seller. When you look at it, these were the two reasons to buy a PlayStation 4 during the time, and it was just not enticing whatsoever. For me, I ended up actually starting off with an Xbox One over a PlayStation 4, and I do actually want to compare the Xbox One launch lineup against that of the PS4 just really quickly. Although we're talking about PlayStation here, I think it's important to give you a really good idea as to just how weak the PS4 launch lineup was. Of course, there was a lot of multi-platform content during the PlayStation 4 launch, you know, like Call of Duty Ghosts, Battlefield 4, and then of course we have like the Madden and the NBA, which is part of any console launch lineup. There's always got to be either Madden or NBA. You know, shout out to the people that enjoy that, but for me, that ain't a selling point whatsoever, dude. And of course, pretty much all of the multi-platform games that were releasing on the launch day were available on the previous generation as well. So yeah, again, Killzone, Shadowfall, Knack, those were the selling points of PS4, very weak. So looking at Xbox One, just looking at its launch exclusives, it had 4 versus PS4's 2. These were Rise Son of Rome, which I gotta say, very, very enjoyable. It was nothing to like lose my mind over, but again, similar to that of Killzone Shadowfall, it was a pretty good display of exactly what the next generation would be able to sort of handle. It was developed by Crytek, the people responsible for Crysis, so I feel like they handled the whole "this is what the next gen can do" sort of thing with Rise Son of Rome fairly well. This is what I played for my first experience of the Xbox One, as well as, about to say 360, Xbox One and PS4 generation. Then also looking at Dead Rising 3, well, this is usually held up upon as one of the worst Dead Rising games. I feel like this is where Dead Rising sort of started to decline. It was still an enjoyable experience, being that I came from the Xbox 360 generation. Yes, that's right, I came from the 360 generation, and I was all about Dead Rising 1 and 2. This was super enjoyable for me, a big selling point to go with Xbox One over that of PS4. Then we had Forza 5, Forza. The Forza series, I feel as if, is more favored over that of the Gran Turismo series. For me personally, I prefer the Horizon spin on the whole Forza stuff, but Forza Motorsport, considering the fact that this is one of Xbox's big exclusive IPs, it was very good to see that Xbox One was on day one launching with one of their heavy hitter IPs. So for Xbox, that was a massive selling point for them. And then also Killer Instinct, an OG fighting game. This came free for any Xbox One system, though it wasn't my thing. I know a lot of people were very, very excited for this. So you can see right there, the Xbox One had a stronger sort of library of that of content come day one compared to that of PS4. There were more reasons, I feel, to purchase an Xbox One at launch than there were for a PS4. Let's talk about PlayStation 3. So yeah, PlayStation 3 is generally held upon as like the worst launch for any Sony PlayStation system. It's really usually a battle between both PS4 and PS3, but for me, I would actually hold the PlayStation 3's launch lineup over that of PS4 just because there was a lot more exclusive content going on. So starting off with Resistance Fall of Man, this was actually Insomniac's first ever venture away from the Ratchet & Clank series after the PlayStation 2 ended. They of course followed through with 4 different Ratchet & Clank games and decided to change things up, creating a first-person shooter set back in 1951 where aliens known as the Chimera invade. I dig Resistance so much. It's a series that I hold very close to my heart. I'm very triggered that a trilogy pack was never released in HD for PS4. It makes no sense to me, as well as those PS3 Ratchet & Clank games. Come on, Sony, what are you doing? But yeah, this was not bad. Although Resistance, I wouldn't say is absolutely groundbreaking, amazing, crazy, out of this world shit. It definitely was a good time, and it was good to see that Insomniac were trying something new. Even though they continued to follow up with Ratchet & Clank throughout the PlayStation 3 generation, this was really refreshing, and not a bad launch title at all. Ridge Racer 7, one of Sony's well-known racing titles, not bad, although I never got into it myself. Not bad to have a Ridge Racer launch as per usual with the PlayStation system, although that never ended up following through with PS4 and of course PS5. Previous other PlayStation systems launched with Ridge Racer, so I know for Ridge Racer fans they were pretty ecstatic to see that number 7 was launching there, though I have heard number 7 isn't generally that well favored. It gives people enough reason to purchase the PS3 system, even though of course we know about the PS3 history, right? Didn't do all too well. I think at the time, speaking of the competition, 360 definitely had it in the bag. We also then had MotorStorm. Really enjoyed MotorStorm. It added quite a big spin on the whole racing genre, adding a cinematic tone to it with just absolute intense crazy shit happening in the racetracks that you're racing on during the time, which can change up all sorts of different shortcuts and pathways that you'd take. I really enjoyed this, and I would love to see actually a current generation follow-up to that of MotorStorm. There were also two RPG-esque sort of hack and slash action games known as Genji Days of Blades as well as Untold Legends Dark Kingdom. I never played either of these. Looking on Metacritic, they didn't do too well, and I don't think these were really any sort of reason to rush out to the store during the time and purchase the PlayStation 3. And can you believe it? Genji Days of the Blade is where the giant enemy crab meme came from. Unfortunately, the next generation giant enemy crab was not a selling point for PlayStation 3. Very surprising. Disheartening even. Looking at that, there was like a decent amount of content in amongst some multi-platform stuff too, like Need for Speed, Carbon and whatnot, but still it was pretty weak. I don't think there was enough reason at all to be absolutely needing or wanting a PS3 system. PlayStation 2! Ho ho ho! PlayStation 2. Yeah, the PS2 launch lineup is absolutely insane. I know a lot of people will go as far as to say that the PS2 launch lineup is probably one of the most insane console launch lineups of all time, just because of how much content was there. Also, as well, the Xbox didn't end up releasing until well over a year after the PS2 ended up releasing. Yeah, PS2 ended up releasing on the 4th of March 2000, and the original Xbox ended up launching in November of 2001. So this gave, of course, the PS2 a massive head start within its library. Though a lot of the initial PS2 launch games ended up making its way over to other systems, namely that of the Xbox. During the time, for a lot of these games, they solely remained on PS2. So there was just so many different reasons during the time of which to go out and buy a PlayStation 2. I'm not going to read out absolutely all of the launch titles, but I'm going to read out some that I personally really enjoyed during the time and later on in my life, because I was very young when the system came out. We had stuff like Midnight Club, Smuggler's Run, Tekken Tag Tournament, Fantavision, SSX, Dynasty Warriors 2, Kessen, Orphan, Eternal Ring, and of course one of those From Software classics, Evergrace, dude. Evergrace! Some of these games have some fairly good ratings, and there's a lot of nostalgia factor behind a lot of them, but then also a lot of them came out either just mediocre or not the greatest. But the thing is, there was just so much content come day one for PlayStation 2. I think still at this point, just looking at how much exclusive content was available on PS2 during the time, it would still probably have to be the single best launch lineup of any Sony system, but looking at it now, I would say that the PlayStation 5 comes in at a very close second. There is nowhere near as much exclusive content, but as I was saying, there's enough reason to go out and purchase a PS5 this time around, especially when you're looking back on PS4. The PlayStation 1 had an okay-ish launch. A lot of the games were pretty much already available on other systems during the time, like, you know, like Sega Saturn, as well as the Atari Jaguar, but there was some okay stuff here. For the ways of exclusives, you had stuff like Wipeout, Ridge Racer, Zero Divide, as well as Battle Arena, bear with me here, Toshiden? Hopefully I got that. There was definitely a big racing emphasis during the time, as we have to think back, this is 1995. Arcade races were all of the rave during that time. Either that or, of course, the whole Street Fighter setup, fighting games. Zero Divide as well as Battle Arena Toshiden are fighting games, so it was either a mix of racing or fighting. So considering the time era during the time, that's not a bad launch lineup, to be fair. There was also Total Eclipse, another game that ended up getting ported eventually, a spaceship-esque game, as well as Rayman, quite a heavy hitter for its time. Though Rayman was not a PlayStation 1 exclusive, it was originally designed for that of the Atari Jaguar, and during 1995 it was ported to many other systems as well. Again though, looking at this PlayStation 1 lineup, there is enough reason to go out and purchase a PlayStation 1 with what was available come day one. So looking at the grand view of things, comparing all previous generations, the PlayStation 5 has a pretty juicy launch lineup. The PlayStation 2, as I said, probably reigns supreme as there was just so much exclusive content day one, and there was most certainly a little something there for absolutely every gamer. But I also feel like PS5 dips into that too, with also offering every gamer a slice of something. There's going to be at least one thing there that should entice pretty much everyone. I think that the want and need over buying a PS5 console day one would probably be a little bit more stronger if Spider-Man Miles Morales, which I know is probably the major big reason why people are going to be purchasing a PS5, but that want for the system would probably be all the more stronger if, of course, the game wasn't also going to be on PS4. This was, again, something we found out about on the day of the PlayStation 5 showcase. So I think for a lot of people, they've kind of calmed themselves down and have told themselves, I don't need that, I can play Miles Morales day one anyway on the PS4. But of course, there will be some next generation touch-ups on these other games that, although will be on other systems, you can play on your PS5 for the likes of that of load times and ray tracing. So not bad, I gotta say, round of applause to Sony for actually having a half-what decent launch lineup. The past two generations have been absolute cat shit, and that's putting it lightly. I think Sony have most certainly learned from previous experiences. Another thing to also compare the day one experience of PS5 to that of the day one experience of PS4 is, unlike PS4, there was no backwards compatibility. PlayStation 5 does in fact have this. Almost every single PlayStation 4 game is going to be backwards compatible. So you will be able to play your PlayStation 4 games come day one on your PlayStation 5 as well. And although we haven't heard about this just yet, we are crossing our fingers, similar to what Xbox Series X as well as Series S can do with Xbox One games just straight off the disc. Fingers crossed there are going to be improved load times with that SSD being in there. Other dudes, let me know your current thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. What is your thoughts on the current launch lineup? Is it enough to win you over for getting a PS5 at day one? I would love to know. However guys, I'm Cynical. Hopefully you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you dudes in the next one. Peace.